spoon about, which is like a collectible box. Some of these like deck storage boxes, which I'll be perfectly honest with you, are not high quality. They're like just pretty basic boxes. But the art on the box is nice. And you get like 8 card packs, and it costs way more than it should. It costs way more than it should, but it was, for me, I was doing it with Kate, so I kind of just didn't really care about the price at that point. So yeah, it's overpriced. So I think the cards are cool though. I don't know how to play the game. At some point I'll read the rule book and probably never actually play the game because I don't know if I'll find somebody to play with me.
Yeah.
At all. I would love to play it just once, just to say like, okay, I played it once.
Just to see.
It's like some of my other cards that I have, like Wixos. Never played it.
Oh, Wixos.
Never played it, but got the cards. The Weeb game you used to open was actually fun, by the way, Wixos. I have no doubt that like games like this are actually super fun to play. I have zero doubt actually that those games are super fun. So I just wish I had somebody to play with here at least once. And for Wixos, nobody will play with me. Maybe I can bribe Kate into playing this little card game once with me. So anyway, that's all I have to share with Disney Lorcana. That's it. This game came out yesterday at local stores. It's overpriced. I think actually the starting decks are the least overpriced thing I saw.
Yeah, the $30 on the starter deck, that doesn't seem bad to me at all. I think that's that's actually pretty reasonable.
I would have expected 20, but 30 was more reasonable than the other stuff I saw. So there were 3 total starter decks you could get. They were dual colors, so each one obviously had 2 colors to play with, and it's those decks are all the colors. So anyway, that's all I have to share with Lorcana. And we talked about Baldur's Gate and Age of Wonders, so I don't have anything else to say.
Yeah. I do want to. There's one other aspect of Baldur's Gate that we didn't talk about.
Go ahead.
I think we should talk about.
Go ahead.
And that was discourse after the game came out. I think it was mostly on Twitter. A bunch of devs, like video game devs, basically crying that the game was good and saying that like it's literally impossible for them to make a game this good. And that, nobody should expect games to be this good.
So here's my answer to that. Stop whining. First off, stop whining. There's 2 aspects of this. The developers, what they're trying to call out is that we have too high of expectations, and that we shouldn't expect games to come out with as much quality as Baldur's Gate. Let me counter that argument, okay? And let me directly counter it by being as mean as possible. Your job as a developer, and your job as a designer, and your job as all the people that make the video game is to make the best quality product you can. And sometimes you don't have control over that. Sometimes somebody says, please make Lord of the Rings Gollum. But your job is to make the best version of that game possible. Your job is to make the best version of that, given the resources you have. Now, Baldur's Gate and the studio, it's not a small studio. Larian is not a tiny studio by any stretch of the imagination.
No, they have like a few, I think it's like 400 or 500 employees and over like, I don't know, a couple different locations.
So just to sort of wrap this out, Larian is not a small company. I have more tolerance of companies that are like really small studios of definitely less than 50 people. Like I have a high tolerance.
Yeah, but a studio like that is not going to attempt to make a game of the scope of Baldur's Gate.
They're not going to be able to attempt that, and that's understandable. So when they try to do that or try to like make something that's really big and it doesn't work out perfectly, or they don't make the game like as high a quality, whatever, I have tolerance. But the problem is these developers, after Baldur's Gate 3 came out, basically they had said, as you said, you shouldn't expect all games to be like this. But you know what? Actually, I do expect a certain level of quality from you. I do expect that. In cases where you are a larger studio, I expect you to do that. And I am not going to be as tolerant of crappy design that you've now taken. Well, see, the other problem is a lot of these devs, particularly at the bigger studios, I'm just focusing bigger studios for now. They've taken the tech company approach. And how do I know they've taken the tech company approach? Because I'm in a tech company and I know exactly what they do. Here's what they do. This is what they do. They say, we have a deadline. Our deadline is 2 years from now. Get the product out, and then whatever's not available, fix it later. That's the approach. Get it out, fix it later. My biggest problem with this approach is, I think my biggest problem with this approach for games is you are selling it to mass consumers. In some of the cases that I've been a part of, I directly work with somebody, like a customer on that, and they understand that it's like a beta phase. But a lot of these larger studios, they're not calling it a beta. They're just releasing the game. They're not releasing it in a state that, even if it's playable, it's not a state that you would expect it to be in.
And also, they want you to buy the game before it's out. They want you to
buy it before it's out. They want you to buy it before it's out. They're trying to sell it to a full audience as a full experience, and there are just too many occasions now where you look at the game and you're like, this is not a full experience. You're missing, like, there are just different bugs in this game, and either it's not playable or there are certain aspects of it that don't work, and you're just like, well, I shouldn't have to expect you to fix those a month later. That's not the approach you should be taking. They're taking this like specific approach that some tech companies take, where they're like, well, we'll show you a early version of it that's not 100% functional, and we're going to sell that to you. And I'm just like, that's not the approach that you should be taking, because you're actually releasing the game. When I show these things to customers, I explain to them beforehand, this is not the final product. So certain things aren't going to work 100%. This is just a demonstration of what it would look like. But these games release, and at times it feels like, well, you showed me demonstrations of it before, and it released, and this isn't working. Or it's not 100% what you demonstrated to
and
me.
There's basically no consumer protection either.
And there's no protection from that.
In the game industry. Most like digital stores have no refund policy. The Steam is a little different. You know, if you have play under a certain amount of hours,
I can't just like
you can refund.
There are some cases I can't just refund. There are some cases I can't refund. So, I mean, like, if the product just doesn't work, you should be able to refund it. Or if you just start playing it like for an hour, it's not working for you, you should refund it. But I think that these developers that are like complaining that Baldur's Gate is going to make you less tolerant of other games, or like Baldur's Gate is setting an expectation that's not fair, I don't think it is. I actually don't think it is. I think just somebody put out a good game. Like,
I mean,
nobody said that when Tears of the Kingdom came out. Nobody cried and bitched and moaned when Tears of the Kingdom came out. They're like, oh, you can't expect us to do this. It's like, dude, nobody said that when Tears of the Kingdom came out. But Baldur's Gate comes out, now everybody's saying this. I just don't understand. What's the difference? Why didn't you say it when Tears of the Kingdom came out? Why aren't you saying it when all these other games come out? Or Elden Ring.
I heard there was some Discord like this with Elden Ring. I didn't see much of it, but I heard
it's just like,
a little bit.
Guys, like, it's public opinion. I'm sorry, but this is public opinion. If we see a good game, we're going to say it's a good game. If you make a game and we don't feel like it's a good game, it's not our tolerance level. It's just the fact of the matter is your game just might not be that good. That has nothing to do with my tolerance.
I mean, part of it is that, like, you can see, like, the passion of the studio and the studio head, and they put all of their effort into making a great game. Whereas a lot of these other studios, again, with these big publishers, you know, Activision, EA, Ubisoft, etc., like, a lot of the money and development is put into, like, the microtransactions and like the other like monetization systems and whatever else
Right.
is in the game. And the head of the studio, they don't care about games. They're not a gamer. Like
Right.
Bobby Kotick isn't a gamer. He's a businessman. He's a gremlin who's there to like have them make money, right? Like
some people are not, they're not making a game in the sense that they decided that they wanted to make this type of game. Some people are told to make Lord of the Rings Gollum, and they make Lord of the Rings Gollum. I'm using that case because I don't think a single person was like, we should make Lord of the Rings Gollum, besides like an executive. So in those cases, yeah, you have no control over making Lord of the Rings Gollum. You're doing what you can. Maybe you're understaffed, you get bad resources. I mean, I'm not blaming you as a developer necessarily in those instances where I can just tell that you were not given a fair shot. I don't blame any of the developers of Lord of the Rings Gollum for producing that game. I would blame the technical side if the game just isn't working. I mean, like, your job is to make it work at least, even if it's bad. Like, it should at least work. But like, I don't know, like, why are you invoking specifically Baldur's Gate in your complaint when there are just many other games that have come out in the last year that doesn't feel like you complained as much? You had plenty of opportunity like Tears of the Kingdom. There are definitely some other opportunities with like even indie games. Like indie games, there are some great indie games that came out. Hi-Fi Rush, that was a great game. That got great reviews. That wasn't a big studio. That was very obvious that somebody in a group in a studio had passion for a project and they put it all into it and they made a great game. Nothing held them back. So I don't know, like these complaints, like what do you expect from the consumer? We like this game. That doesn't mean we're not going to like your game the same way.
Yeah.
It just, like, I'm not going to necessarily compare your game to Baldur's Gate. Like if you're an FPS game, what's the comparison? It's just that, like, when I see a bad game, I see a bad game. That's all it is. There is to it, and it's an opinion. That is, I'm sorry, game designer and developer, that feels like Baldur's Gate might have ruined that. It didn't.
And guess what? When you make a good game and you don't put any microtransaction in it, and you get word of like, then it gets praise around the internet. And you know, streamers are playing it, YouTubers, blah blah blah, reviewers,
right.
And it's getting great reviews. Then other people, but like this game, like, look, I expected this game to review well. I honestly expected that, but I did not expect to do like the sales and like Steam numbers
not at all.
that it did, because it's a CRPG. This is a niche genre. This is not a genre that does numbers like this.
Right.
It's like
I thought this was niche, and it's not. It's gotten reviewed like it's mainstream at this point, and I'm like, wow.
The game just garnered so much universal acclaim,
right?
That like people who maybe not even necessarily like this genre or have ever played this genre before are just like, well, I guess I'm gonna buy it because people said it's amazing. And I've heard like takes of even like YouTubers and stuff being like, yeah, I don't really plan to play it, but I just bought it because I heard that it was so good and that the studio's awesome, and it's just like, I don't really want to play it, but because it's not my type of game, but I just bought it just to support the studio, basically, right? Like,
they're just, I mean, it's just like, look, like the studio wanted to do a Baldur's Gate game. They got the license to do it. They spent a lot of time on this game. This game was in early access, like in 2020. Like this was not like a game that was made quickly. There was a lot of time put into this game. They have a track record already. Larian's made the Divinity Original Sin 2. Like, there was a track record. They knew what they were doing. They made a game similar to those, but this is just specifically a Dungeons and Dragons game.
Yeah.
And so, like, it wasn't like this was to a certain extent unexpected, but at the same time, to call out specifically that, I guess people would be would set too high of expectations to other games because of this one. I don't really get that as like that's what you came out. That's what you came out from this. That's what came out for you from this.
If anything, like, look, someone like a company released a great game in your industry, you should be celebrating that. You should be like, man, that's awesome. I hope my next game can live up to that, right?
Right.
You shouldn't be like, you should be, you know, I don't know.
If you're upset by this, by the success of this game, if you're upset by this because you think it's going to make people think less of your game, that's a you problem.
Yep.
That's a you problem now.
Try harder, make a better game.
That's a you problem. It's not really their fault. Why you can't really fault them. You can't fault me. That it's not my fault. Like, I just saw a great game. Is that my fault that I saw a great game? No. I don't think any less of any other game because of Baldur's Gate. I just think highly of Baldur's Gate. That's it. Yeah. I mean, and I can make comparisons if it's relevant. Like, I was like, oh well, Baldur's Gate did this, but this other CRPG did this. Like, it's different. So, it's just a lot of whining.
I don't think this is gonna happen, but I'm gonna huff a little hopium here.
Okay, go ahead.
I hope that, and again, the chance of this happening, I think, is like infinitesimally small, if not almost impossible.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that some of these companies see what Baldur's Gate did, and that is take a niche genre, make an amazing game, build great like public opinion of the game, and thus profit, do really well because they made an amazing game and built, actually built up their reputation and favor with the community, as opposed to the vast majority of these big companies. What they do is they don't care and they just burn bridges and destroy their own reputation for profits.
Yep.
And this is basically what Blizzard has done over the past 10 to 15 years since the merger with Activision. Blizzard has basically zero good faith anymore with the community. That company is...
It's not really the same company at this point.
We all remember them from Warcraft, StarCraft, Diablo 2.
The glory days of Blizzard is like
StarCraft,
that.
Even StarCraft 2. And yeah, it's just not like...
There's like that 5-year period of glory days.
None of the people that made Blizzard what it is are at Blizzard anymore. Like, they're gone.
Right. You can still make... So Baldur's Gate 3 is obviously gonna make a lot of money. It's gonna I imagine, heavy profit. There's two different things here. Number one, you can still make a great game and make a shit ton of money. Diablo 4 made a shit ton of money.
Yep.
I mean, when it's all said and done, at this point, that's got to be $1 billion game now. At some point. So, I mean, you could still make a crap load of money. Like, I don't know, depending on who you talk to, Diablo 4 released as a good game. Obviously, some people would disagree, but you know what? Like, public opinion is it was a good game when it came out. Okay.
When it released, opinion seems to be turning against them now. But
I'm
when
seeing
it released, people liked it. Yeah.
On release, I'm specifically speaking on release. People liked it, and that game has made a lot of money. So you can still make amazing money with a good game and have microtransactions, have everything you want. Like, if you need your microtransactions, you can still make a game that has microtransactions that is still a good game. Like, having microtransactions doesn't instantly make your game bad. It just microtransactions, when people see it, get a sense of they just get worried. I'm worried when I see microtransactions in certain things. But that doesn't make your game bad. What makes your game bad is if it doesn't work, or it's just generally designed poorly. There's like practices in the game that make it not as entertaining because you have to do certain things that are like time wasters, things like that.
And then a lot of times the microtransactions make the game that way because they make they bloat the game for the microtransactions and just make it annoying to play unless you pay for it, right?
Right. It's so the microtransactions need to be built in such a way that isn't causing an additional grind, which the problem is that's kind of how mobile games work, and companies see how mobile games also make that much money with very little effort. Nobody can tell me a mobile game has tons of effort put into it. If you do, no, they don't. They don't have tons of effort put in. Most of the effort in mobile games is how to make someone want to pay. That's all the effort. All the effort in mobile games is like, we need to put the most bare bones product out there that is still addicting, like the gambling slot machines, and give them like, we have to get them just enough where they can play, and then we have to get them to spend. That's mobile games. Problem is that strategy has started to be used now in games that aren't mobile games, and that becomes a problem. Ubisoft is a massive criminal of this. Ubisoft is a huge criminal of the Assassin's Creed. We got EXP boosts. You want those? It's like, this is a single player game, Ubisoft. You shouldn't have those. So, I mean, that's also a huge part of it. Is like, people see mobile games, and mobile games make a lot of money with very little effort put into them. And they're like, hey, how come we can't do that? And I'm just like, well, let me explain. You see, different expectations.
Yep.
Different expectations. And for Baldur's Gate, like, there is no microtransactions, at least that I'm seeing. I'm sure at some point they'll have like a DLC, but that's not a microtransaction. That's just a DLC. But like, if that game had a microtransaction system, let's say they had like different outfits you could buy. The only microtransaction system that would worry me is like EXP boosts kind of thing, which would totally remove the purpose of Dungeons and Dragons. So, but that, like, if this game had certain level of microtransactions, it wouldn't change how I feel about the game itself, unless it was like that. It was like EXP boosting. But like, I don't know. Like, I just see a lot of whining. I saw that on Twitter, and I saw like the IGN video talking about it. It just seems like a lot of whining. Like,
yeah, there's a lot of whining.
You're just trying to make a point that we shouldn't be comparing Baldur's Gate to your game because of Baldur's Gate's quality. And I mean, as you're crying, and I'm seeing the crying, and in this case, I don't feel bad for you because I just don't understand why you're crying about this. Every time a new game comes out and it's great, cry at that game. You better cry at every single one. Otherwise, you're just singling out this game for no reason. That's how I feel. Every single good new game that comes out, that's like an 90 or above. I better see your post crying about it. Being like, you shouldn't expect this game to be like mine. You got to cry at every single one now because you cried at this one.
Yep.
There's no reason for it too. I don't understand the reason to cry at this one in particular. Like, Tears of the Kingdom came out, nobody cried. Everybody was just praising it. Nobody cried about it. That's what I don't get. Like, cry at everything. That Dead Space remake got almost a 90. You gonna cry about that? Nobody should expect my remake to be as good as this one. Should I cry at that too? Just don't get it. Don't get it, Spoon.
Yeah, I don't really either. It's
Age of Wonders was great. We should cry at it. It was too good. We shouldn't expect my 4X game to be as good as this one.
Mm-hmm.
It's setting too high a standard. I don't like it. Anyway.
Yeah, I agree. It's you know.
It's a lot of crying.
Yeah, a lot of crying.
I don't get it. Anyway. Auto been doing his person. I just don't get it. Like, don't single out one game. Like, that studio worked really hard. They spent a lot of time on it. Don't single out them. Single out everybody.
I just wish every game could have, like, and every studio had as much passion, like, for making a great game as Larian does.
It's very clear they did their homework on how they should do this, and they did it. And that's your post shouldn't be about how we shouldn't expect every game to be like this one or compare it. It should be about like celebrating this. And also, if you're a developer or designer, you should look at that game as a source of inspiration for your games, and like that's like feedback.
Take a page out of their book.
That's what you're supposed to do.
See what they did.
That's what you're supposed to do. You shouldn't cry about it. You should be like, this is amazing. Looking forward to using some of these design choices in my game.
It's an advancement in the industry.
Exactly. Like I don't get that.
That should be the blueprint. That's how you should draw it up.
Like, you don't see DoorDash complaining because Uber Eats actually gives you the order correctly. They're like, well, you shouldn't expect your order to be correct because Uber Eats does it correctly every time. Or you shouldn't do this. Like,
you don't see other
companies don't generally do that.
Yeah, some company like innovate or come out with like something great in another industry, and the other company is just like whine that they did something great.
The other companies don't generally do that because you don't do that. It's not about that. So I don't know what it is. Okay, Spoon. Yeah, we dunked on that person for like 30 minutes. I don't know. Mostly.
I mean, it wasn't just one person. There was multiple people.
Oh, there were definitely multiple people.
That take.
There were a lot of people whining. They were McWhining about it.
Yeah.
And I just don't get it. So, anyway. Well, I don't have anything else to chat about, Spoon.
Yeah, I don't think I do either.
But I do wonder about that plant in the back of your room. Is that a real plant? Are you watering it? Are you taking care of it?
I don't think it's a real plant. It's been there a while.
Okay. I was just wondering about that plant. I don't have anything else, so he doesn't even know. He doesn't know about the plant. That plant's suffering back there. Wish Spoon would give me water.
It was there before I got here.
It's like a decoration. Okay, it's a little decoration.
I certainly didn't buy that.
Got it. Okay, gotcha. Their little staging plant, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
We'll just make it look nice. Okay. I think I don't have anything else to add for topics today. So do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Nope.
Okay. Fine. Well, I guess that'll do it then. We will be back next week unless something happens. We'll talk more about video games and stuff. Hopefully people on Twitter won't whine anymore when games come out. I hope when Starfield comes out and if it's an amazing game, I hope everybody complains. I want everyone to whine again and complain about Starfield. I'm also really curious at how buggy Starfield's going to be. Looking forward to that.
It's going to be really buggy.
It's going to be so buggy. I'm excited. Really looking forward to all the bugs.
If it's not, I will be really surprised.
I'll be shocked. Those bugs are going to be fun. Usually Bethesda bugs are actually kind of fun to look at and laugh at. Those are usually fun. They're just fun to look at. But all right.
I think Gamescom is this week, just as a heads up.
Okay, gotcha.
So maybe we'll get some announcements. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll get something new. Get some new stuff, hopefully. Cool. All right. Well, videos for this week will go up as soon as we can. Hopefully, we won't have to wait a month again. And we'll be back next week. I think for time, we did 10:30 today. I think if it's okay with you, Spoon, 10:30 is good because that way I have the ability to go to the market.
If you wanna change the regular time to 10:30,
it'd just be like the 30 minutes extra. That's really about it. And then we'll do 10:30 to kind of like what we did today was 12:30. So yeah, we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for coming by. Thanks for being patient from our time off, and looking forward to seeing if there's anything new for next week to talk about. And maybe talking about Baldur's Gate a little bit more.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll see you guys later. Thanks for coming by.
Yep.
Bye-bye.